Welcome, everybody. My name is Karen Edwards, and I am the director here at RT3. And we are so excited to have you all join us for our third webinar in the series that we put together to really help the industry understand what's important as we go through these crazy times, and to hear from fellow industry members what they're doing and how they're handling it. So we're going to hear today from Trent. He's going to give us Cotney Construction Law. He's going to give us the latest from a legal perspective. Following Trent will be Josh Kelly. He is from OMG Roofing Products. And we haven't heard from manufacturers too much, so we're real interested to hear what Josh has to share with us. Heidi Ellsworth from Roofers Coffee Shop and HJE Consulting is going to share with us how to stay connected digitally. What are some resources for you to connect with your peers in the time where we can't get together in person? Charles Antis is going up from Antis Roofing, and waterproofing, sorry, Charles, Antis Roofing and Waterproofing, is going to talk to us about giving back to your community and being a leader in times like this. And then Nick Sabino, our special guest from Deer Park Roofing, and he's also the NRCA chairman of the board, is going to wrap things up with what NRCA is doing to help. And use the chat box, guys, down at the bottom of your screen. Open it up, talk to each other, ask questions. I will grab your questions if one of the panelists does not see it or does not respond to it, and we'll definitely open up for Q&A at the end. But feel free to use that chat box as we're going. And once again, toward the end of the meeting, I will share a link to our master resource document that has links to things that our panelists are talking about. 3 pages now, 1 for each webinar. So that being said, I will turn it over to you, Trent. Tell us what's going on from a legal perspective.
Great. Well, thank you, Karen, for having me, and I appreciate everybody tuning in. Tell you, the legal issues have been changing almost hourly. So we've been doing our best to keep up with everything, keep people informed. Recently, if I had to kind of tell you what the highlights are, and I'll try to stick to 2 or 3 points. The biggest issue that we've been getting over and over again is roofing essential? Is it essential business? And as these shelter in place and stay at home orders start coming down, we're getting calls and waves from the various jurisdictions. Generally speaking, I can tell you that most of what we are seeing, construction remains essential, therefore roofing is part of that. In certain areas, Boston, Pennsylvania, New York City recently curtailed a lot of construction. We're starting to see a cutback from it, but as it stands now, generally speaking, most jurisdictions allow roofing as an essential business. Now, there are exceptions, okay? So you need to make sure this is governed by state and local orders. So you need to go to your local or state order to figure out exactly what is happening. And this is happening, literally hour to hour. Yesterday, late afternoon, Florida went shelter in place. So that order came down, and then there was a lot of interpretation that had to happen with various counties in the state and things of that nature. So that's something to really pay attention to. Next thing I want to mention is the CARES Act. So the CARES Act was passed on Friday. We've been getting a lot of questions about that, what that means for roofing contractors out there. And there's some great things in there. If you read it, it does give you access to an SBA loan that's fairly streamlined. The application is fairly easy. The way that it works now, and there's a little bit of confusion as far as what the SBA put out as opposed to what's in the Act. The Act says it's up to a 10-year loan with up to 4% interest. But a lot of what we've seen coming out from some of the SBAs is a reduced time frame, 2 years with 0.5% interest. There's some confusion as to what's what. So what we're recommending now is fill out the app. It's going to take time. This is not something, the SBA doesn't show up with a bag of money and throw it on your desk. It's going to take time to get through all this. But the good news is that there is some loan forgiveness capability. Okay, that capability comes by maintaining a payroll similar to previous time last year. And there's some calculations that goes into that. They're looking at certain periods between February 15th and June 30th. But the good news there is that you may have some loan forgiveness capability. It's worth looking into. Okay, some of the questions that we've gotten with regard to the CARES Act is how much can you get? Well, based on what the Act says, you can get either 10 million or up to 2.5 times your monthly payroll expense, whichever is less. Now, again, the SBA app that we've seen and some of the stuff that we've seen after this CARES Act have come out, there's a little bit of conflict, so stay tuned for more information there. Some other interesting things that you should look at in that CARES Act is you have the possibility of deferring payroll tax. Okay, that you need to carefully think about what your options are. This is usually an either or option, so either you get SBA or you can defer payroll tax. I don't like messing with payroll tax. It's one of those kind of things where if you miss it by a day, you're in trouble. So take a close look at that. Obviously, we can give you more guidance on that, and look at our website for more information. One other thing I want to mention is April 1st, the Family First Coronavirus Response Act went into place. And I tried to get a lot of information out there so that roofing contractors would understand what happened on April 1st. So on April 1st, Family First Coronavirus Response Act, I'm just going to call it the Family First Act, consists of two different acts. One is Emergency Family Medical Leave Act, and the other is the Emergency Paid Time Off Act, or Sick Leave Act. And what that does is it requires employers to provide some additional paid time off for 6 defined circumstances. 2 of those circumstances, which you don't normally see in paid time off, are caring for a sick one or you've got a child at home. Okay, so the calculations on how much you have to pay depends on a variety of different things. I won't bore you with the details. Again, go to our website for more information. On the Emergency Family Medical Leave Act, recognize that you may have some additional leave that you might have to give based on care for a child. Okay, so both of these went into place. What roofing contractors need to understand is there is some hammers in this act. So if, for example, someone comes up to you and says, hey, I need to take time off to take care of a kid, and you say no, there are potential retaliation provisions in there that you got to be mindful of. So we live in a little bit of a different world from an HR perspective now. Make sure you're paying attention to that. So again, things are changing hourly. I guarantee when we're off this phone, we'll have some more updates, but those are the big things that I'm seeing right now. So with that, I guess I would turn to Josh.
That was great, Trent. Thank you. And to your point, things are changing constantly. We saw very strong demand in March as a manufacturer. We're in a bit of a unique position because we are supplying components both to the roof membrane system manufacturers and distribution, and we're also on job sites doing things like pull tests. I think that the uptick in March is partly normal seasonality, but also maybe some people hedging a little bit on the uncertainty, making sure that they have material available. We've been positioned as an essential business, so we're able to operate all of our factories. We've been making product as quickly as we can because we're in the same boat. We're not sure how long we'll be able to keep doing that, so we're going to make as much as we can while we can. And you know, anecdotal things, we've seen some situations where people are saying that their schedules have been accelerated because they have better access to buildings. That's kind of an optimistic view. We've seen other situations where projects are delayed. Projects most likely to be delayed from what we've seen have been new construction projects or projects that are just in planning stages. Projects that are renovation, those typically need to get done because they have leaks that need to be fixed. So that work continues. So near term, our outlook is good. We've got plenty of material. Our sources of supply are domestic. We haven't had any difficulty getting raw material. And as I said before, we're doing everything we can to kind of keep the factory going while following all of the CDC guidelines and keeping our employees safe. So talking a little bit about what we're doing on the employee side, we've broken our whole operation into various zones. So we're really kind of strictly following the CDC guidelines about separation between employees. Anyone that is able to work from home is working from home. Obviously, as a manufacturer, there are certain operations that can't be taken home with you. And so we're doing everything that we can for those employees to keep them safe by, again, following the CDC guidelines, maintaining separation. We're using a protocol called the Clorox 360 cleaning system, where we come through and we sanitize the areas on a high frequency. We've also done certain things to support employees. There are obviously a lot of uncertainty and personal questions here, and so we're making things available, helping our employees use the teledoc system, both for their wellness, not just physical, but also mental. So we're conscious of that and doing everything that we can to support the employees that are either working remotely or working on site. I think those are most of the talking points that I came up with. One interesting thing that we've done is obviously the way we're doing business has changed. We're using a lot of these teleconferences like we're using right now. We're even using this kind of technology in cases where someone needs a pull test, and for whatever reason, because of our travel restrictions, if we're unable to be there to do it, we can be there virtually with them and witness the test using a smartphone and video. And our techs are able to watch the test perform and then receive the data and then go ahead and sign off on the report because we've actually witnessed it, even though we weren't actually on site. So we're kind of working through this and learning new ways to do business to support customers, with the objective being keep the jobs going, keep the factory going, and just keep the industry going.
Thanks, Josh, for that update. I think this is really the first time I've heard manufacturers, talking about how they're still operating and operating differently. This brings us to Heidi. When we started these webinars, we didn't realize there was such a need for people to want to be together. And that's how this industry is, right? We love our conferences and our events and our meetings and spending time with one another. And when all of a sudden that's taken away from you, you feel isolated. And Heidi's going to talk to us about keeping those connections and resources for doing that. So Heidi.
Karen, thank you. And thank you everybody who's on this. I mean, really, all of us working together and communicating, we've never been better. We are all coming together as a roofing industry. And I have to tell you, on March 5th, my doctor told me I should not travel for a while. And at that point, I said, okay, this is serious. We need to put some things in place. And so as Roofers Coffee Shop, we are digital. That's what we do every day. We're on the website, we're on social media, and we are, out there with e-news and everything like that. But I was like, how are we going to deal with this moving forward? And I have to tell you, sometimes it's like old things coming new, picking up the phone. And so many of you are going to be probably thinking, what's that great technology advancement, Zoom and all those kind of things. But I think these kind of things, the virtual meetings where we can see each other, turn on the video, turn on your FaceTime, that makes a huge difference. I will tell you, National Women in Roofing have been doing virtual happy hours at the end of many days just to be able to talk, to be able to be together. There's no reason as contractors or definitely distributors and manufacturers that we can't be even closer to our customers at this point. It just means doing it a little bit different. So one of the things I would recommend for all of you is really look at your customers, figure out what's happening to them. If you are a residential roofing contractor, what's happening to your customers? Well, they're in their house. They are supposed to stay in their house. And guess what they do when they're in their house? They're looking around. They're doing home improvement. I've been hearing this from contractors all over that, they're in their house. They're like, this needs to be painted. This is leaking. What's happening? So if you can offer solutions, as a contractor, you know who your customers are. Hopefully you have your CRM. You can get information out to them. Pick up the phone, email them, text them. How are you doing? Just ask, how are you? Are you stir crazy? Are the kids driving you crazy? Do you need some home remodeling? For residential, I think we're going to see a lot of that. On the commercial side, again, I think bringing solutions to your building owners. So what are they doing right now? They're working from at home too. They're on LinkedIn. They're on social media. They are looking, they're going out and researching right now, what should I be doing? As soon as this is done, how am I going to take care of that roof that has to be restored? Can I do it now? The contractors who are out there who are offering solutions on how to do it now, we can do it. I talked to a general contractor this last weekend. One of the biggest things that the AGC is working on is job site perception. So again, how are our job sites being perceived? Are people going by and saying, are they having social distance? Are they following the CDC? So being able to communicate those kind of things digitally through your website, through your Salesforce, you know, a lot of the salespeople are going to be like, what, you know, I need to see them in person, but we don't. I have been since the 1st of March on the phone nonstop. We just were talking about this at the very beginning. I've probably worked harder in the last 4 weeks than I have in my whole career. Late nights, early mornings, on the phone, talking to people, writing, getting information out, really feeling the solidarity of this industry. So I would, again, just to kind of summarize so I don't get too excited and passionate about this, but pick up the phone. Video is very important so you can see each other. Social media, definitely follow each other, put information out there to help your customers, to help your fellow roofing professionals. And then look for the websites that can give you training. On Roofers Coffee Shop, we have a full page now that curates training from all over, from our whole industry. So NRCA is on there, IBEC is on there, all associations. We are gathering where you can get training. NRCA, Nick's going to talk about that. They have amazing things that you can be doing right now during this time. I would also encourage continuing education for your employees at home also. Give them a chance to go out and find out more. So when this is over, which it will be, you'll be able to be ready to be in front of it. The last thing I'm going to say too is there's a lot of people out there who are like, we just need to stop. We just need to stop doing everything with our customers. We need to, or, you know, we need to stop advertising. We need to stop putting money towards that. I'm going to disagree. And not just because this is the business I'm in. The companies that are staying in front of their customers, both through advertising, social media, on the phone, are the ones that are going to come out of this at the very top. They will be the ones who are remembered, and they will be the ones who will have even more business on the other side. So that would be mine. Again, I'm always open if anyone has questions, either through the NRCA, which offers consulting, Roofers Coffee Shop. If you want to just kind of talk through some ideas, we're always here for you. So I'm going to turn it over now to Charles.
Thanks, Heidi. Before you get started, there's a question that came in, probably for you, Trent. Do we want to take questions now, or do we want to let everybody, you want me to hold it till the end?
Sure, go. Whatever you want to do.
All right. Well, I know Charles has a lot of really good stuff to say. So Steve, you asked a question. Please bear with us. I will answer that as soon as Nick is done. And I asked Charles to be here today because he is committed to philanthropy, his community, and helping others, in addition to keeping families safe and dry. And then I think he's a really great leader that has some really good wisdom to share. So Charles.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Heidi. You know what? I know everybody on this panel, and it means so much because our industry is so close. And, you know, my legal counsel's here, my chairman of the board of the NRCA. Josh, you presented Antis with the first ever national recognition we ever had 3 years ago when we won the Community Involvement Award. And Heidi, you're like one of my Sherpas, you know? I guess I can call you a Sherpa and you'll take that as a compliment. And I love that. And to your point, Heidi, I must jump on that. And continuing to spend, I got to tell you something that happened to me a couple of nights ago that was really powerful. And I went home and I was with my family in my house, and suddenly there was somebody in the backyard. It was around dinner time, and it was Nick, the spa guy. And I thought, it was, you know, it's dinner time. There's somebody there now during COVID-19. And I walked out and kind of said hi to him. And Nick didn't give me a full stare because the social context is not set now. He was probably 20 feet away, and he said, Charles? And I said, yeah, Nick. And he said, I've been thinking about you and your family. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, I'm thinking about your kids and how they're wondering what's going on right now. And I brought something for them. And he pulled out a little inner tube that you blow up in a little beach ball, and he gave it to me. And it just really hit me. Like, I called my executive team and I said, wow, at this time when we don't know what to think, when we can't catch up to the economy and what's going on, this guy took a marketing spend. And, you know, Nick's a great guy, but he has a relatively small company. It's got to be doing under $1 million a year. And he went out and he bought something for his clients. And I know he didn't do it just for me. And that is where our mindset has to be if we're going to survive. But let me come on to why I'm here. I'm here to talk about crisis leadership. And I'm here to talk about how to engage with the community all the time, but in times like this in particular. And I want to point back again to this podcast. 2 weeks ago, most of us were in a state that I can only describe as deer in the headlights. And you know, I'm a very vocal leader, but you didn't hear me saying much about 3 weeks ago because I just didn't know what to do, because I'm a little bit scared. I have to admit that. I'm vulnerable, and I'm going to admit when I don't know the answers, but I knew one thing. I got to plug into every resource I have, the NRCA, the RT3, local government, everything. I got to plug in. And I come onto this broadcast 2 weeks ago, and there wasn't anything of its kind. In fact, my brain had not been Zoomed yet. I didn't know how to grab information like I can now. And we're all gaining in this new context. But I tuned in here, and I listened to you, Karen, and I listened to you, Trent. I don't remember which one were on the first call, but I remember two people, and I know one of them's here today because he's been harassing me in the chat, and that's Ken Kelly. And Ken Kelly and Steve Little, two amazing contractors that really have a social forward voice. They were on here, and they reminded me of what we're supposed to do as leaders. And this is not just in the roofing industry, but we have an obligation to be the ballast on that ship. We have an obligation. You know, we're in the roofing industry. There's a lot of liabilities that come at you in the roofing industry. There's drought, it's feast or famine. And so we have been through tough times before. So it's our job as leaders right now to be still in the moment and to remind our team that we're going to have answers, that we've got answers before. And I just want to thank RT3 for getting this started in our space. And I want to thank Ken, and I want to thank Steve and everybody that was there. Again, I'm not going to mention those because I don't remember who was the first one. I've seen a lot of stuff like this since, and that's really helped me. And that's one of my first things I'd say about leadership. It is critical that you, as a leader of your company, find a way, even though you're going to wake up in fear at times, but to remind yourself that we've been through stuff before, and to put your people first. Because those that spend money, and I'm going to finish Heidi's sentence, I know she'll agree, we have to continue to spend money out there and to be seen, but it's got to go through your people. And so it's a time that if you don't have it, I would borrow it. I would find a way to tie into everything Trent's talking about. And my management team, we break off in our executive team, and I'm fortunate to be big enough that we can do that, because I can't comprehend all this. I get a little bit more every time I hear Trent talk. But I have Audrey Schneider, my VP of Finance, who's digging into every possible loan that we're applying for everything. Because we don't know if they're going to run out. Why not apply for everything? We can always renege at the last moment between these two programs, but we're dividing and conquering. But I know my job as founder and CEO, and that is when there's another news announcement, which we could have any night, a drastic spike or whatever, we can pause and we can regroup and we can reach out to our people like this on this panel, and we can come up with the right solution in the moment. And so it's my job to be positive. It's my job to look at the opportunities. And there are a lot of opportunities right now. And sure, like I said, I have the fear, but when we look back at this time later, boy, isn't like it was mentioned here earlier, we're going to see what worked. We're going to see which apps work. I mean, we're fully remote. We have 35 office positions operating from home. And we've been electronic for a long time, so it was easy to switch to remote, but we don't know what works and what not works. Man, I'm really getting repaid on that investment right now. But I want to get to philanthropy in a time like this. And so, you know that, and most people in the roofing industry that have a relationship with me, they know that we provide roofing. We provide roofs to keep families safe and dry, like all of the local Habitat for Humanity roofs we have for 10 years. And we love it. It helps us define who we are, and we exist to keep families safe and dry. Like you said, Karen, thank you for saying that. But in this crisis, in that deer in the headlights moment, it was difficult for us to know how can we occur to our employees and to the world that really helps. So at first, we were able to help. We had rain. We were able to help some local nonprofits stay dry. But then there was this news that came out that I learned from these things I was tuning into, and that was food insecurity. I don't know that much about food insecurity because food insecurity is economized by food experts. And so this food insecurity piece, I suddenly learned, it took me about a week to catch up, that there were a lot of families that were now home that were getting food at school. And there were a lot of elderly people that were now being domiciled in their houses. They can't get out and they don't have their access to food. And so what happened is we raised our hand and we got involved. And I got to tell you what that does to your people. We didn't do that much because we're not that much in that play. But when I showed up to deliver those meals to those elderly people from Second Harvest here in Orange County, and I drove a part of this truck brigade, I mean, we didn't high five because we're not touching each other because we're social spacing. But man, I wanted to hug every truck that was in line to take those. And when they gave us those boxes and we took it to these elderly people in our area, I got blessed like I've never been blessed. I mean, it felt so good. And I remember when I took the second box to this lady's house and she hadn't had a visitor for a while, she so gratefully thanked me and blessed me for bringing this food. And then she pulled out like this used tube of Colgate toothpaste and this looked like a little hotel bar of soap. And she asked, can you help me get toothpaste and soap? I mean, it is the humanity that you see when you get out of yourself and you go out of yourself and you take your people and get out of yourself and do something. It can awaken you to hope, and it awakens you to the fact that although we are challenged, all of us are challenged, and there is an awesome opportunity that occurs in your culture of your company when you come together to do good. And what I love about this industry, and I'm sorry, I'm excited when I talk about the roofing industry, because when I got involved nationally, Heidi, when you pulled me in to all these things, and I got involved in the Roofing Alliance, and I met all you people, I learned that, oh my God, I mean, everybody gives roofs. You know, I don't know a roofer who has that. I'm struck with the condition. I can't let somebody have a leaky roof just because they didn't have the money to pay. And we're all that way. We're just organizing and we're learning if we share our message and get it out there, that more good will come. So in addition to helping with food and food delivery, we actually post on it too, because not only we donate and deliver time, we donate cash, but we also post about it on our social media channel because we can draw attention to it, and other people will share that post. But we do our giving based on the harmony of our people, and we have ways that we learn what's important to our people. So like we donate all the Ronald McDonald House roofs. And what's really cool about the roofing industry and those on this call, that are so many of us on this call and on this panel, are donating all of the roofing for all of the Ronald McDonald houses across the country. And what that means right now during the COVID crisis, it means during this pandemic, we may not be able to go inside and cook those meals with love anymore, but we can still go out and keep those families safe, dry, and close. And I love hearing those stories, how that is happening right now. I want to do something odd. I'm in a 6,000 square foot section of our 20,000 square foot Antis campus. And I'm just going to turn this. I'm going to show you how wide open this is. And we have this completely cleared out. We've cleared out this entire space. It's been sanitized. They'll probably sanitize it again after I'm gone, because on Monday, American Red Cross is coming here to Antis campus, and they're setting up their blood drive because we're 10,000 quarts shy. And we know this because we have volunteers at Antis Roofing that show up and do all of the drives around here. And so we were able to raise our hand and said, I think we can donate this space, got a separate entry. And on Monday, I'm going to be dressed up in probably full protective gear. And I'm going to be, I don't know what you call it, but using that hand thermometer. And I'm going to be bringing people in so that they can donate blood after we screen them. And I'm so excited about this. And I'm excited because it's the exact need we have right now in our community. And we had something that cost us relatively nothing to donate, but because we kept our ears plugged. And what that does for Antis is it shows our relevance in the community. If I had an algorithm that measured the marketing value of it, and I'm not doing it for the marketing, but I'm aware of the marketing because I'm a business owner and I have to be. The stories that will be created out of that will be beautiful stories about people, of saving people at a time of crisis. And that will benefit Antis Roofing and our brand. But it will also benefit the community, and it will benefit our culture in a big way. When your people are aligned with you, they'll give that extra service at a time like this. And so for us, it's all one thing. You know, we have a very big oneness principle here that we try to follow. And right now, I want to say one last thing about crisis leadership, and I think I should stop talking because I've been going hard here. But I think that I forgot what I was going to say, actually. I got excited there. But is there anything I didn't cover that you would have a question on?
No, Charles, that was fantastic. I think, people are to the point now where they're thinking about how can I help? What can I do? So
They are.
you sharing that, I think, was very, very nice. Thank you. So Monday, I was on the NRCA town hall phone call, and I was shocked at the end when Reed said there were 3,000 people that dialed in. And that was a really, really great phone call. And we thought it would be great to invite NRCA Chairman of the Board, Nick Sabino, to be a special guest on our webinar and just tell us about what NRCA is doing to help the contractors and the industry. So Nick, please.
All right, thank you, Karen. Going after Charles is always a blessing. But Charles, you know what? I really love what you're doing. As we look at the roofing industry across the country, it's just amazing how you just raised the bar for everybody. I mean, what you're doing at your place. And we really, NRCA has been down a path to change the image of what a roofing professional is for several years. And it's people like you. A couple weeks ago, I saw something with Brad Belden donating face masks to the local hospitals, stuff that was in their warehouse that they're not using. But these are the kind of stories that really, where people are shedding a different light on our industry. So great job, and please keep it up. I will say, I just downloaded Zoom about 45 minutes ago, and this is the most social interaction I've had. It's great to see everybody, Trent and Heidi and Josh. So this is fantastic, and thanks for inviting me. NRCA has been really busy. I thought that this was going to be a relatively slow time. It typically is after IRE. We kind of slow down at NRCA, but what the most amazing thing to me is 3 weeks ago, I was at an industry event in Marco Islands, and I was talking to an economist, and the message was how great of a year the roofing industry was going to have. There was very little mention of coronavirus. It was there. It was in the back of everybody's mind, but nobody thought, 2 days later we were going to cancel the NCAA tournament, and next thing you know, we're going to be fighting for our lives here. So, literally. So, what's NRCA been up to? I think first and foremost, if we talk about our Washington D.C. office and the importance of that office, 2020 is an election year. I haven't heard anything about an election for a long time. We have totally lost focus of the election, but what our DC office has been doing, if you think you're busy, they've really been busy. They've been dealing with the Department of Homeland Security, working to make sure that roofing was considered an essential trade, and to make sure that state by state, as these shelter-in-place orders come down, where is the roofing industry? Where's the relevance of the roofing industry in terms of an essential trade? And Dwayne Musser and his team, and I talk about this almost every time I speak, they do such an amazing job, and they are so important for us as a roofing industry, whether it's a manufacturer, a supplier, contractor, the entire industry is what they're doing is amazing, and success has really occurred in 48 states. We're Trent could probably speak to this a little better than me, but with the exception of Pennsylvania and Washington, I think we've done a really good job of defining what an essential business looks like, and being involved in the CARES Act, being involved with the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. I think that's it. So what they're doing in DC has been really important, and we've been involved every step of the way. We sent a letter to the White House with other industry groups to make sure that our needs were being met in some of this legislation. Been very successful doing that. Just as I was looking through my emails right before we came on, I got an email from one of my senators here in Ohio, and it was from a grassroots effort that we did a couple weeks ago, and talking about where the roofing contractor fit into all this legislation. And I got a really nice letter back from my senator thanking me for our input and wishing us luck and explaining what they did and why they did it. So the engagement is really important for all contractors, for all members to be involved there. What else is NRCA staff doing? NRCA, everybody's working from home, as you all can imagine. My company, everybody's working remotely as well. So it's definitely interesting times, but NRCA staff is available to answer all your questions. We're getting a lot of technical questions. What is a tie-in? Is a tie-in, is a temporary tie-in, is that good for 24 hours or is it good for 24 days? We provide some guidance there. Our health and safety, obviously, we're preparing a toolbox talk, coronavirus toolbox talk that working through some of the Department of Labor and OSHA regulations. Our insurance department, there's a lot of insurance issues that we're working on through here. I would encourage everybody to visit NRCA's COVID-19 resources page. It's on the site. There's a lot of good information. Trent's all over that section. I would encourage everybody to go there. If you don't have enough COVID-19 resources in your life right now, NRCA's got a lot of really, really good information there. I mentioned working remotely. One thing that I would really encourage everybody to participate in right now is as we're working remotely and productivity is going down, and we're looking for certain things that our staff can do when they're at home. One of the things NRCA's, I think one of our best accomplishments is our TRAC program. TRAC stands for Training for Roof Application Careers. It's really an onboarding program for people that are new to the roofing industry. The TRAC program is available, and you buy it once, and you can use it for every employee you onboard. There's no additional cost. You buy it, you own it, and anybody with an email address can sign up and go through the TRAC program. It's training that you could do on a cell phone. Now's a great time to do this. I know we have several employees that are working from home and are looking for things to do, and whether, even if they're administrators or if they're not even involved in the field, now's a great time to do that. Heidi mentioned that earlier. So that would be a good thing I could recommend. And also engaging with our NRCA Legal Resources team. All of the NRCA members have an option to do I believe, Trent, you could talk about that maybe a little bit too, but it's a 30-minute discussion about what NRCA Legal Resources can do for you. Last thing, Karen mentioned, or a couple other things, I guess. Karen mentioned our NRCA Town Hall event. We had our first one ever on Monday afternoon. We had our NRCA team of technical, DC, health and safety, myself, and our CEO, Reed Ribble. Trent was on there as well. And we robocall goes out, and 3,000 people pick up the phone and join our town hall meeting. Everybody was able to submit questions. It was a very popular event. I got about 10 or 15 emails right shortly after about, boy, how you really have to do this again. So we're going to try to do these throughout this crisis for about or every 10 days or so. We're going to try to do this. If you're not signed up for that, I would encourage you to email McKay Daniels at mdaniels@nrca.net and get on the mailing list. But great turnout, really good event. I also want to talk about, some of the trends that we're seeing, amazing period of 3 weeks where we went from being in a real crisis from a worker standpoint to now everybody's thanking you that they have a job. So we're really starting to see some trends. And I think as we, you work through what you're doing with the CARES Act, and if you're getting the SBA loan and seeking for that loan to be forgiven, that bottom 20% of people that are on the team. I know that at my company, we we definitely made some improvements, or we're going to seek to make some improvements there with, you know, whereas before this crisis happened, you were kind of afraid to have to let somebody go because you were so understaffed. And now we're able to rethink about how we could maybe take that bottom 20% out when work is not as busy and not as hectic. So I think that was something that we're really seeing some trends there, rebalancing our workforce to make sure that they fully meet our core values, I think is one thing. I think we're seeing a lot of different trends with residential and commercial. Residential customers seem to, you know, some of the older retired customers, it's, boy, they have a list of things they want to do on their house, and they're not really missing a beat. You know, it seems like the younger folks who are worried about their job or might be out of work, obviously they're not interested in doing any type of home improvements right now. I was really surprised when we made the decision to shut down about 3 weeks ago on our commercial side. We contacted all of our projects that were in progress, and we said, hey, we really think it's in our best interest to shut down until this situation's over with. And nobody really wanted that to happen. All of our customers said, no, we want you to keep going. We're gonna, you know, we like the safety precautions you have in place. Please keep going and let's finish the job. So very little disruption on the commercial side of things, but more so on the residential side. Maybe 25% of our jobs have maybe canceled or wanted to postpone. So definitely some different things that we've seen from a few weeks ago. From an NRCA standpoint, obviously it's a shame for us, but Roofing Day in DC's canceled. All of our events that have really been scheduled for the rest of this fiscal year, which ends on May 31st, have been canceled. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Karen, and happy to answer anybody's questions.
Excellent. Okay. So Trent, the question from Steve is, how can we utilize Section 179 of the tax code updated in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act to persuade clients to get work done now as it relates to the CARES and FFCRA, as well as the updates to the modification of qualified improvement property definition?
Wow.
That's a long question.
Yeah,
it's in the Q&A if you need to read it.
Yeah, I was hoping for a softball, like what's a contract, but let me answer this to the best of my ability. Section 179 of the tax code, I believe, was enacted in 2017, and what it is it allows for, especially on commercial roofs, you can take certain deductions. And recently, under that tax TCJA, the taxpayer, whatever it stands for, they increased the phase out from 2 million to 2.5 million, and they increased the definition of what those qualified type expenses are. So it does give you a potential option to go in there and suggest to, especially commercial building owners, that, hey, you might be able to take advantage of that. The thing you need to keep in mind is that under the CARES Act, that SBA loan that you get is only for 4 categories, okay? It is for payroll cost, healthcare cost, mortgage, rent payments, and utilities, or payables that occurred prior to February 15th. So if you're trying to sell jobs, don't go in and say, hey, you can use your SBA loan to pay for this other thing because you get Section 179. You might be able to figure out other ways to do it. It is available. We've taken advantage of it in the past. So it is an option, and they did recently expand it.
Thank you, Trent. I don't have any other questions in the chat. Does anyone else have questions for any of the panelists? All right, then what I'm going to do. Oh, sure.
Karen, I had one, just real quick, I had one thing. What I would like to encourage everybody out there in the audience to do is to keep talking. There's a lot of these kind of panels going on where you can learn so much, but then you get done afterwards and you're kind of like, what do I do next? So one of the things I was actually supposed to say, which I didn't, is RT3 actually hosts a forum on Roofers Coffee Shop. And there is a forum in there where you can keep talking, you can keep asking questions, you can get in, you know, just kind of find each other. And I think that's important because so much of this information is a little overwhelming and you think of things later on. So I'm going to post that link down below. Or or in the chat box, but if you you'll see it on the forums of Rivers Coffee Shop. And I just think that kind of engagement is going to be important for all of us, and to follow the passion that we're seeing, especially, ask Charles, what can we do next?
We have a question come in from Adam. How does the PPP loan apply to commission-based employees? In other words, would this lower their quota?
Is that a question for me? I'm just kidding.
I assume that's a me question, right?
Probably.
Right. I think I understand what's being asked. I think, so my advice would be, if you go to the SBA.gov, the application is there. It's fairly simple. As I don't remember which speaker spoke earlier. By the way, Charles, that was fantastic. I just got to say that was really good. What I would recommend is apply for everything. Apply for anything and everything, and that way, if you have the capability of getting it, you can. If you are being paid solely on commission, does that affect your ability to get an SBA loan? I think it depends on whether or not you're a business or whether or not you're a 1099. So that gets a little bit more complicated. There's some other tax issues and liability issues there. Feel free to hit me up after this, and I can give you more detailed information. But my advice is apply for anything and everything, and then you can always decide if you don't want it after you get it.
So Brad said the way he understands it is there's two different loans. That one is the SBA loan only through the SBA, and another is this PPP loan, and that's through banks, and it's different.
Yes, so there are two. If prior to, was it yesterday or the day before, there was the disaster relief loan from SBA, which is just a standard SBA disaster relief loan. And many of the roofing contractors out there were applying to that one thinking that it was this magical CARES Act loan. So the CARES Act loan is the paycheck protection loan that the person that submitted the question is talking about. It's a little bit different. It's a little more streamlined, and the application process is a little bit easier. So they are two different loans. That's my advice is, don't wait until you need it. Figure out if you want it, go through the process. The paycheck protection loan goes directly through a lender. Okay, so it is a little bit of an easier process, but navigating sort of the tax issues and kind of figuring out what's best for you, that's a little more difficult.
Trent, I thought I understood that we could apply for everything and pull out last minute. Is that not a good strategy? Because that's my concept.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing, until you sign on the dotted line, you can do it that way. The only thing you need to be careful about is if you decide to defer payroll tax, because it is an option under the CARES Act. That's sort of an either or. If you go that route, then you're sort of precluded from obtaining some of these other benefits that some of this, that the paycheck protection loan offers. So just think about it ahead of time. For most people, the loan is a better option.
Great, thank you, Trent and Charles. Right now, I don't have any further questions. We were recording this webinar. We will send out an email with a link to the recording if there's anyone that you would like to share it with. Oh, can you do both loans? Additional question. How would you decide what bank to go through, and can you do both?
There are certain banks that are identified as not every bank wants to participate with SBA loans. Okay, so just like if before this happened, if you tried to get an SBA loan, there's only certain banks that will allow you to participate with that. Can you apply for both loans? I'm not aware of anything that would prohibit that, but that being said, they're only going to give you so much money. So I don't know of anything off the top of my head that would prevent you from obtaining a disaster relief and the other one. But I got to think that if you're going, regardless of whether you're going through a bank or you're not going through a bank, you might have some issues there. So the better of the two, in my opinion, is the paycheck protection one, just because you have the possibility for debt forgiveness. So anytime I hear debt forgiveness, I'm, so that's the one that I'm interested in.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Trent. Again, thank you everybody for attending. Thank you panelists for sharing. We really appreciate it. And everyone stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Goodbye.
Bye.